In this lecture, we are going to discuss mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures. We will start by defining those three terms. We will then look at the importance of conducting a gap analysis whenever your organization is acquiring a new organization, or perhaps you are separating from part of your organization. Finally, we will look at data transfer considerations. So very quickly, just as a bit of level setting here, I wanted to make sure that we all understood the difference between a merger, an acquisition, and a divestiture. A merger is when two or more organizations become one. An acquisition is when one organization acquires another. And a divestiture is when an organization sells one or more of its divisions. So when we're facing any of these three situations, a merger, an acquisition, or a divestiture, what are some of the best practices from a data protection privacy point of view? It's important to understand, and I think by this point in the course, this is hopefully clear. Risk is created whenever we are adapting to new processes or acquiring new data. It's therefore important very early in the process to conduct a gap analysis. And a gap analysis is just that. We are analyzing, or we are looking for gaps or spaces. And this would be a gap or space where we do not have coverage. Some areas you would want to evaluate, for example, include new or changing compliance requirements. If your organization is merging or acquiring an organization that exists and operates within another jurisdiction, then you are certainly going to have new and changing compliance requirements. Of course, within that, it is implicit that there are going to be new laws, regulations, and standards to adjust to. Similarly, there are going to be new or existing contracts that may need to be amended, and new or changing client requirements. Finally, all of the IT. There may be new or existing networks or new or existing data assets that your organization is now responsible for. For example, databases and servers. In short, all of this needs to be accounted for very early in the process. Again, implicit within this process of acquiring a new organization or separating from an old one, there are going to be a number of different data transfer considerations. These include performing due diligence for all parties and technologies. You want to understand the new data requirements. For example, where does the data originate? What was the purpose of collection? How has this data been used, processed, maintained, disseminated, etc.? Throughout this entire process of discovery or the gap analysis, you want to adhere to the data processing principles that we reviewed earlier in the course. For example, lawfulness, transparency, data subject rights, etc. You need to consider document transfer and sharing. Is any transferring or sharing authorized? Under what authority is it authorized? The last thing that you want to do is have any unauthorized disclosures. Of course, you also want to consult on technical security safeguards. And again, throughout the entire process, maintain the accuracy and integrity of the data. In this lecture, we have looked at mergers, acquisitions, and divestitures, and what best practices to follow under these circumstances. Remember that a merger is when two or more organizations become one. An acquisition is when one organization acquires another. And a divestiture is when an organization sells one or more of its divisions. Under any of these circumstances, you want to conduct a gap analysis. You want to account for new and changing compliance requirements, new laws, regulations, and standards, existing contracts and client requirements, as well as new networks and data assets. Finally, with regards to data transfer considerations, you need to consider due diligence for all parties and technologies. You want to understand the data. Where did it come from? How is it used and processed? How is it stored and protected? Adhere to the data processing principles that we reviewed earlier in the course. Consider the security of document transfer and sharing. You want to consult on technical security safeguards. And of course, maintain the accuracy and integrity of the data.